Buenas and Hafide Todas Hamzu, this virtual oversight hearing by the Committee on Federal and Foreign Affairs, Telecommunications, Technology, and Labor is hereby called to order. It is now 8:30 a.m. For the record, and in accordance with Section 8107 of Chapter 8, 5 GCA, public hearing notices were sent on Thursday, November 12th, 2020, adhering to the 5 working day notice, and a second public notice on Tuesday, November 17th, 48 hours prior to today. In addition, this virtual oversight hearing was noticed on the Guam Legislature's website at www.guamlegislature.org. Joining me here this morning is Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano. Hafa Senator. Thank you for joining us. And before we proceed with the discussion of items on our virtual oversight hearing agenda, I first want to provide some general rules of conduct for all who are in attendance. And the conduct of this hearing shall be as follows. All members must abide by rules of conduct and quality assurance standards that are reviewed prior to us starting. When speaking, just ensure that you're unmuted, and the chair will invite individuals who have signed up to testify. Please wait till you're recognized before speaking and state your name and your title for record purposes. The order of questioning will begin with the panel of senators who shall complete their lines of questioning for each item on the agenda, and then each member will be allowed to pose another question to an individual testifying for a round, and we'll provide other rounds as necessary. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the meeting room. Hafa day, everyone. This is the 6th in a series of hearings with the Guam Department of Labor to receive updates on federally funded pandemic unemployment benefits. And I'd like to extend a sincere and heartfelt undangklun asidus maasi to the Guam Department of Labor, namely Director David Della Sola and his team, for taking the time to participate today, especially given the important and ongoing work that the department is currently undertaking. And I'd like to recognize DOL for the need to, or their job in continually informing our people about the latest information on the critical pandemic unemployment assistance, or PUA, as well as the federal pandemic unemployment programs. Millions of dollars are now in the hands of thousands of families who lost income during this public health crisis. And the aim of today's meeting is in line with our previous public discussions with GDOL to receive an update on the federal unemployment programs placed under their purview by Congress through the CARES Act, and also to receive an update regarding PUA, fraud prevention, overpayments, and the newly established Lost Wages Assistance Program. And so at this time, I'd like to call the panel of individuals who've signed up to testify. Again, please unmute your mic and state your name and title for the record. Mr. Della Sola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Dave Della Sola. I'm the Director of Labor, and I'm here to speak to you today. Before I begin, I wanted to thank you, Senator Régine. It has been a pleasure working with you, and in my nearly 20 years as a director, I can't tell you enough that we've accomplished more, and I've enjoyed working with you more than in the history of my time as a director. We accomplished a lot between the workers' comp, the GRAP, apprenticeship, and labor, and I thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you. So now on with the show. So if you pull up, Christian, the first screen, I will quickly show you a spreadsheet. And this basically is going to show you about all the paid batches of PUA and taxes that we've collected. We've run a total of 17 batches, as you can see on the right-hand side. And this kind of tells you on the bottom there that $428,000 is how much we've dispersed since June.
Sorry,
talk about
428,000 or 428 million?
428. I'm just checking to see if you're paying attention.
Okay, great.
$428 million of how much we've dispersed of the, and we have plenty of money in the bank. As far as figuratively speaking, we have 509,000 that we've asked for an allotment draw that is in the payment management system that we will draw from. So as you can see, we've been running this very quickly, and in September, October, we moved from a weekly payment to a bi-weekly payment. I'm sorry, by every 2 weeks we decided to pay out, but we have made some special payments, meaning 2 weeks ago we made another PUA payment, and we also included some of the people that were the bounced return direct deposits that people put in wrong account and user information, and they weren't included in the batch. So we decided to try to do a special payments because there was a lot of them. And we also regrouped the payment. And then, of course, this week we did another batch of about $7 million, as you can see on the 17th on the bottom there. That, I'm happy to say, should be hitting the banks, Bank of Guam today, tomorrow, and hitting all the banks, and the checks are being cut as we speak and should be mailed out by next week, and hopefully they'll get it before the Thanksgiving break. So that is running smoothly, and there's no problems with that. And,
that's great. I apologize, Mr. Director. I'm just going to interrupt you for just a second, and I want to acknowledge the presence of our minority leader, Senator Tello Taitagui, who's joined us this morning. Thank you, Senator, very much for being here with us. And Director Dela Sola, please continue.
Welcome, Senator. Yes, so you can see the breakdown of all the payments that we have broken up into the PUA, the FPUC, and the taxes. So that is pretty much self-explanatory and gives you a full idea and accounting of the monies that we've released so far. Moving on, I also wanted to kind of let you know, if you filed in February, if you're one of those early filers, people are going to start reaching the 39 weeks. And the majority of the people, if they filed at the first PCOR 1, which is the March 16th, they will be expiring in the middle to the 20th of December. So people will slowly start expiring just before the end of the program. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that everybody knows that. And we continue to process, we continue to move along, we continue to, I think, run a clean and good program. We're right now up to September 16th as far as claims filed up to, and I will get into, you get a clearer idea as I go along why we're only up to the 16th, and most of that has to do because of fraud and the time it takes to clean that out. So moving on to any questions on that, I will move on to overpayments. Okay, as you can see, we've been paying out. You've been fully aware of the last Oversight's hearing, and I think we've been doing a great job. My staff tirelessly working 6 days a week, overtime, to continue to do my #1 priority, which was given to me by the governor, and that was, Dave, get the money out. And that's what I focus on. Everything I do, get the money out. So now with overpayments. Overpayments, we are on the last part of the procurement process and in the testing and the UAT of an overpayment module. This module will help us reconcile the accounts of individual claimants as they get notified of their overpayment, come in and pay, and if we have to, garnish their PUA and their FPUC payments to cover their overpayments. As we speak, we have about 120 overpayments identified and have been notified. We have closed 27 of those, we have collected about 160,000 of the 500,000 overpayments that have been identified. A lot of these overpayments are in the process of being worked out, and we are moving fairly well with a very complicated process. And once this, what I'm hoping by the beginning of the next month, we get this overpayment module in, it will go even faster. So I think the overpayments are working well, and the notifications are starting to go out. You will start to hear noise from people and from claimants who complain about these overpayments. But I do want to let you know, most of these overpayments were either people who fraudulently got fired and they continued to file for PUA, or they got the PPP and they got paid from PUA, and you can't get that at the same time, and you have to reimburse these things. And they got a paycheck and they didn't put it in cleanly, and they were supposed to get a reduction of PUA, and they were overpaid. So those are a lot of the reasons for overpayments. And of course, the ones who were fraudulently claiming that they were eligible and they have been audited and been caught, they have to pay that money back. That is also an overpayment. So that gives you an idea what the overpayment is all about. So I will move into appeals.
Actually, David, if you don't mind, I apologize. Yeah, if we could just do a round of questions on what's been covered so far. I did want to Thank you. I did want to ask you about the notification and appeal process for overpayments. If you could kind of describe what goes into that. So if they're notified via email or letter or phone call, and then if they wanted to appeal, how could they go about doing that?
Well, there's usually two ways. As in an overpayment, when there is an overpayment that is recognized, the system will generate a notification and a letter, and it is sent to their PUA account and to their dashboard. So when they go in to file their weekly claims, they see that letter, and they see that there is something, an issue with their claim. And that's where they will get a letter, and that they can send that in to us to start working it out, notify us. And of course, they can so choose to appeal. They will get an appeal form. Every person, a lot of times when we work with them and they don't like the answers or they don't not sure of it, every claimant who has been not only have an overpayment but also have a disqualification can appeal that disqualification. First they can always do it informally, where they call and say, why was I disqualified? And we try to explain to them that their disqualification was because they're not working has nothing to do with COVID. And this is a pandemic unemployment assistance program, not an unemployment insurance or unemployment program. You have to be unemployed because of COVID. So you had to be working and then unemployed because of COVID to qualify. If you're not, then you're not qualified. A lot of them don't like that answer. They say, well, I need help. I can't find a job. Well, you didn't have a job before the pandemic. Therefore, you don't qualify. As much as I love to pay them, I would want to give everybody money, but I have a fiduciary responsibility to keep paying people that fit under the federal regulations of the PUA program. And that's the hardest part. So they're notified, and they always have the right to appeal. And once they are appealing, just like when you're taking somebody to court, you can't go and argue and ask somebody to help you fix things. That's what the appeal process is. You go to the appeals and you go argue it, and then you have a final ruling. Because typically we've already reviewed your case, my adjudication team, and they've researched it, and they've determined that the disqualification or the overpayment is legit, and you have to pay it back. And some people don't like that answer, so they can appeal.
Right.
And that's the process. They can't keep asking us to re-look at it, ask me to look at it, ask the governor, please have David re-look at it. No, you already appealed. That's the process. So
Okay.
let the process go. And so you'll get that a lot, I'm sure, from claimants calling you, asking you. All your first question should be, have you appealed it yet? And if they say yes, then let that process go. That's the part of our implementation plan, part of the federal due process.
That's helpful
Answer
for
your
us. So
question?
thank you very much. Yes, thank you. And I just want to give an opportunity for Senator Kelly and Senator Titlegy to answer or ask any questions.
This is Masi, Madam Chair, and it was very, very useful to go through that process. I think especially important was that last sentence, was if anybody reaches out to us, and we do know that we get a lot of community members that do, that we should point them in the direction of the appeals process or ask about that appeals process and whether they've availed of that. So I think that's really valuable information for us and helps us, help the entire situation in an appropriate manner. The one question I had at this point is when you mentioned a lot of the overpayments being worked out, can you clarify, I know you won't have exact percentages, but are we 50% along, 75% along? Where would you estimate that we're at in that process, just to give us a clearer picture?
Well, I can give you an exact picture. We have 120 overpayments identified. We have closed 27 cases, and the rest are either being, and we've collected $156,000 of the 155,000 total estimated overpayments. So this process has only been about a month going, and it's already, and then the balance of those are being notified, being worked on, meaning, okay, some of them said, yes, I knew I got this money and I knew I had to pay it back. I'm ready to come down there to take care of it. Or, man, I've spent some of this money. Can we work out a payment plan? Can we work out something? So that needs to be worked out. So a lot of them are either being handled or in the process of being handled and notified. So we have an outstanding balance of $399,000 that are still in the process of being worked out. But we've collected 156 and settled 27 of those 120.
Okay, and that thank you for that. That gives us a clearer picture of exactly where everything is at, and it will be useful. And I know the Oversight Chair has been very, very good at having these informational and oversight briefings to really keep us abreast of everything that's going on. So we look forward to the next one and hear how, to hear how these overpayments are continuing to be resolved. I know it'll be at a much higher level at that time. So Sujus Masi, Madam Chair, and then I look forward to the other sections we're covered to ask questions there.
And I do want to make one caveat for all you senators. That doesn't mean that if somebody comes to you and needs help with their claim, or that has a problem with the claim, and they're not appealing, I get those requests from you, from everywhere, from the island. That's my job. So I'm happy to get those little love notes that say, please help us fix Joe Cruz's claim or this claim. And as long as it's not been appealed, then I'll be glad to continue to help those people. That's my job, and I get them from everybody. So I don't want to discourage you from that. It's just that if they've been fixed, they've been looked at, and they're appealing, then there's nothing more that anybody can do except let that process go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator. Senator Titlegy, any questions for Dave?
Well, like a very thorough individual, Senator Marsh, asked the question that I wanted to ask about, the exact amount. Dave, would you mind putting up the screen again that you had earlier, if you don't mind, in full view? Yeah. Okay. I did. Yeah, that's. Okay, that's the full view of the screen, correct? That because I took a picture of it, but
you should have those documents on your files so that you can get an exact electronic copy of it instead of taking a picture.
Okay, so you just mentioned that it's on the file. Is it on this chat? Did you put it on the chat?
Yes, we did at the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
They just reposted.
Yeah, it would be nice to to have the okay. You can go ahead and take it off. You can go ahead and take it off because I did take a picture of it earlier. It would be nice to have that same kind of chart layout spreadsheet for those overpayments, just to follow suit on what's going on, to give a clear balance, on both perspectives. If we can get that to a chart made for the overpayments I'm talking about.
When we get the overpayment module installed, then that will give us reports that will help us. Because when we first got the system, it was broken up into all kinds of modules. We've purchased what the modules we thought back in March that we needed, with totally ignorant of what this program was all about. Okay. And as we moved along, we're purchasing what we needed to purchase now.
Yeah. So Dave, the spreadsheet that you showed us earlier on there, I'm looking on the left-hand side of it. It says ACH. This is where it says date and then type, and then it says ACH.
Yeah, at the very beginning,
what is ACH?
That's direct deposits.
Payments.
And
ACH is called direct
deposit payments and not checks, because the checks had to be. We're still being worked on as far as a process.
Direct deposits, okay. And this 35 million in taxes collected, has that been, already, in the hands of Department of Revenue and Taxation? I mean, this is something that you give the direct payment to Rev and Tax, so they can put this on the books for the month of. If I'm not mistaken, this is cumulative throughout from March, if I'm not mistaken, through March all the way to November. So all that funding has already been given to Rev and Tax, correct?
This is a DOA question. As they collect the money, they move it to Rev and Tax. So I feel quite confident to saying yes.
Yeah.
But that's not in my lane as far as when DOA collects that money. DOA gets it immediately.
Okay, I'll ask them that question. I
assume takes it to Rev and Tax or gets it into the general fund.
Right. Okay.
That part, I'm a labor guy.
Okay. No worries. I'll ask them that
but
question.
That money is there immediately.
Yeah, it's something we want to gauge too, because the reality of what's happening today, I mean, we're not going to be getting this money for hopefully we can get another stimulus package or, additional funding to continue the payments. But it's good to separate to see where it's coming from. Thank you, Madam Chair.
As we draw down those batches and the money gets received at the bank, that taxes hits DOA too, that cash. So.
Okay. Thank you.
It's immediate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sellers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Tiedegree, and we'll continue on for updates from Director Della Sola on lost wages assistance and on fraud. But before we do that, Director Dave, I still am seeing many comments online, on social media, and just in the community about the idea that money from this program is being held at Bank of Guam and payments are being slowed so that Bank of Guam and other financial institutions can benefit from the interest. And I know that that's been covered in previous oversight hearings with you, but I just wanted to give you again an opportunity to provide the correct information to the public on that.
Thank you. That is something that just doesn't seem to want to go away. and the people just don't want to accept my answer. But we do not keep the money. That 924 comes down to allotments into a payment management system at USDOL. There's 509 million in there that was allotted to us. As we batch a file every Tuesday, and I go on the radio and say, we batched today, and that batch came out to, the last one came out to like $7 million. And once I get that total, which is how much is broken up, just what you saw in that chart, how much is in PUA, FPUC, taxes of PUA, taxes of FPUC. That gets sent to the payment management system at USDOL. They take that exact money and move it to Bank of Guam, so that as soon as it hits Bank of Guam, we move the file for release of direct deposits, and the checks start getting cut. Monies are not allowed to be sitting. USDOL doesn't have a system for us to take the money and hold it at the bank. They only release the exact amount of what I batch in every one of those 17 batches. That is the amount that I have to request from USDOL to release from our fund to the bank. And then once it hits that bank, it gets paid out. That's why I say on Tuesday, I hope that once the money gets there, usually by Friday, the Bank of Guam can immediately take the ACH file that they've been holding for direct deposit. As soon as that money hits the bank, they release the direct deposits out to all the banks and to all the recipients. And then the checks are being already cut. They start to get mailed, and that money is released to all the check accounts. So there is no money that is advanced to us. No money is advanced. It's all in real time.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much for clarifying. And yeah, if you could continue by updating us on lost wages assistance program and maybe on the fraud update.
Sure. Let me go into the frauds because it's still related to PUA. And so fraud. If you could pull up, Christian, the Marianas Regional Fusion Center information bulletin. The first page there, right there, perfect. If you look on the scroll up, then keep scrolling up, keep scrolling up, keep scrolling up, keep on. Oh, down. Sorry, down. No, go back up. You went too far down. The 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, where it says both local and federal officials. Keep going. First page. You're down too much. Stop. Okay, right there. Both local and federal officials report a spike in fraudulent unemployment insurance complaints related to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic involving the use of stolen personality identifiable information, PII. Criminals target the unemployment programs and infrastructure by deploying sophisticated attacks which utilize stolen or synthetic identities, as well as advanced technologies and multi-state networks. In Guam, an analysis of the monthly claim statistics, between 89 and 91% of all monthly claims were fraudulent. This high rate of sophisticated fraudulent claims place a high burden on Department of Labor staff, systems, and necessitate a close cooperation and coordination responses between local and federal partners to combat these issues. Now, that's the most you're ever going to hear from the feds. That basically says, I'm working with them with fraud. We are working together with the AG's office, with the local FBI, with the OIG and Homeland Security. We've been under attack by DDoS attacks. I've been attacked by bot attacks, trying to put in thousands of claims in a 1 to 2 hour period. I've been organized continuous fraudulent attacks and fraud. You can go ahead and remove that. That is from Mariana's Fusion Center, which is a cooperative of all the law enforcement agency. So you know that is just not me talking. Some people are saying, oh, he just talks about fraud in order to slow down the payments. The same people that talk about the bank getting interest. These are the same people, conspiracy people. This tells you that basically validates what I'm saying. This also tells you what I'm showing here. This shows you a pie chart of 35, this is in a quarter, 35,000 fraud. And what you see in the yellow are clean claims, and that orange are claims that have issues. That's what I'm up against, cleaning on a daily basis. And you wonder why we're only on September 16th. This is why, because we're spending so much time removing. Just to give you an idea, because you guys always want numbers, we've come up with an estimated total of about 80,000 fraudulent claims filed on our system. And if we had to equate that to dollars, we're talking about $694,000 in fraudulent claim attempts that we've caught and saved. So that's more money than we've paid out. More money, if you add that in to our 400, than we had allotted for us in our $924 million. We would have been out of money.
That's 690 million or 690?
$9,400 million.
Madam Chair, I think I'm on the same line as you, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
You know, to get those numbers, and if it could be in a spreadsheet, you know, I know I could see your mind going on
that.
that.
Some of those numbers, unfortunately, these are estimated draft form numbers. They're not, you know, this is every day I get thousands of fraud. And it's a constant, it's like trying to throw a dart on a moving train and asking you to say, can I have that exact number? It changes as I'm speaking.
Could you maybe give us an idea of how many attempts of fraud are made by off-island sources versus maybe local sources?
Well, the local sources are a lot more difficult because do you categorize a person who's not working and filing as fraud? Do you categorize somebody who was a valid PUA customer but didn't want to go back to work and got terminated and continued?
Yeah, are we seeing a majority of these fraudulent claims made by off-island sources though? Yes. Okay.
I hope you can understand that that's something I don't want to get into specifics.
Yes, no, I understand.
The local frauds are being handled locally.
Right.
And those off-island organized crime and sophisticated fraud attempts are being handled by Homeland Security and the OIG.
Yeah, great.
And the FBI are helping us with the local, more organized local fraud.
I see. Sorry, Senator Tello, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, you mentioned a number amount. You mentioned a money amount. So it's obvious that you are tracking.
No, we're giving you estimates because I know that you're looking at it. That estimate is about 80,000 claims that have, of course, without, I can only use averages on that 80,000 because they all file at different times. Some are out of the FPUC period. Some are in with the FPUC period. Some are only for filing for 5 weeks. Some are filing for 20 weeks. It would be exhaustive for you to get an exact. So I'm giving you a ballpark number, and that ballpark number is close to $700 million.
$700 million in fraudulent requests for PUA funding. That's what you're saying. And this
is an estimated ballpark.
Right, estimated ballpark. We're not holding you to that amount of money. So from March until today, you've had an estimated of a ballpark of 700 million.
I think that was through the end of October. We estimate that.
Okay, $700 million in fraudulent people going after this funding.
Remember, these are people that we caught before they got paid.
Right.
So they were never paid. That's
Right.
why it's hard for
And
me
that's
to
what
give
Senator
them a
Marsh,
dollar amount.
yeah. And I think, and that's what Senator Marsh asked that question about how much money, you know, to pay back that you gave them the money. Now we're looking at just those, and Chairwoman brought it up because I think she's right. We should have at least a ballpark to see how many people are actually going after this money. And luckily the Department of Labor, with your due diligence, you're catching them before they can get it, you know, along with the help of Homeland Security, you know, keeping those at bay. So I appreciate that hard work. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that interruption. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Senator Tello. And Director Della Sola, one more question. Have any residents successfully appealed an initial determination of fraud? So let's say, you know, I'm an honest, hardworking person, and I've tried to play by the rules, and for some reason my claim was deemed fraudulent. Has there ever been a successful attempt at appealing a determination of fraud?
The way I can answer that, so far, all the appeals cases that have been heard, none of the claimants have won.
Okay.
But there's a caveat to that. And that is because the appeals process is once they file an appeal, to quickly try to go through this without getting too wordy, is that they're notified, okay, you want to appeal. Well, do you have all your documents ready? Are you ready to appeal? Do you understand why you're appealing? Let us explain it to you so that you can properly make sure that you understand why you're appealing. And sometimes they might say, well, I have this document that I didn't upload, and this is why I'm appealing. And then my people will look at it and say, well, this changes the whole narrative. Looking at this, I can tell you, well, then you do qualify. We can fix it informally right then and there. And we've done that to about 77 appeals.
Oh, excellent.
That we've handled informally, fix them, or that they've understand, oh, yes, okay, I understand why I was disqualified for these weeks because I went back to work and I went back to work and I'm a part-time worker, so you don't use the earning disregard. You're back to full employment if you were always working only 15 hours a week. You don't claim. So once they understand it, a lot of them withdraw. And I'm telling you,
that's a really important thing to remember for everybody in our community, both for the folks at GDOL, but also for the folks applying, is that this is all very, very new to us. And so we're each trying to learn as we go along. And the application process was, you know, very daunting for many people. And especially because they, you know, thankfully we set up the in-person stations at GCC, and they were able to get the help. But, you know, many people attempted to do this online. And so I think that kind of is where some of the
and I want to point out that, you know, we're bound by the federal regulations. We don't make like judge calls. Like I can't say, oh, okay, I feel so bad because you have kids to feed and you were unemployed before the COVID, I'm going to give you the money. I cannot do these things. I have to follow the regulations. But the good thing is that I'm telling you, these are local people that are adjudicating. They are trying to get the money to everybody. And if there is a way that the regs can fit so that you qualify, they will do that and they will give it to you. There is no vested interest. This is federal money. I want to give it to everybody.
Right.
But I have to do it legally and right. So if they call up and they're appealing and they give us new information or something and we can fix their claims right there, we fix it. We don't say, wait till you go to the appeals and go through that motion to get it fixed. We fix as many as we can and we give the money to as many as we can within the federal guidelines.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. Can you just go into the Lost Wages Assistance Program for us and give us some updates on that?
That goes right into my next subject. Okay, the Lost Wage Before I go into that, I just want to let you guys know that I'm so busy, and a lot of people have been asking me for data and for information. And they're saying, oh, this is important for us. And educators, people, they want data, they want information. And I don't want to sound like I don't want to give it, or that to stop that, I have to pull resources away from getting the money out. And we're under 5 audits right now. 5 audits that are going on simultaneously. If you're under one audit, you know how disruptive that is. I got 5 audits going on right now, and I'm trying to keep the LWA out. I'm trying to keep the PUA going on. I'm doing oversight hearings. I'm doing everything. And I can't just say, I can't give people information because it requires people to stop, organize, run reports, pull this data that isn't readily available. So me not doing it is because I'm bailing a ship that I'm trying to keep afloat, and I can't take on more. I have to prioritize it. And the number one priority that the governor told me is keep the money going out. So I just wanted to let you know that. So the LWA program, just to kind of get, at the beginning of August, you know, Trump created this program because Congress failed to move forward with any additional stimulus package. This was his way. On September 5th, we submitted a budget. And FEMA came up with a solution to Guam and the territories, because the states, you know, this was a $400 program, of which every state and territory was to pay $100 into this to get the $300. A lot of states complained that, you know, we don't have the money. Where we're going to get this money? And they came up with a solution for the UI that you can use your state contribution from the UI to do the offset. Practically every state took advantage of it and are paying $300 out. We don't have a UI. So the FEMA came up with a presidential waiver. So when we submitted our budget, the governor submitted a presidential waiver to the president, and FEMA said, we'll take care of it. We'll get it signed for you. We'll stay on top of it and get it. We waited and waited. We got, on the 5th, we applied. On the 8th, we were approved for the first 3 weeks. And as we waited, they said weeks 4 and 6, we're going to do if you want to, apply for it. We applied for it, and within 2 days, 3 days, on October 13th, we were approved for another $22 billion, for a total of $45 million. And then in November 15th, the governor and I got a letter from FEMA basically stating, don't wait for the waiver. Go ahead and move forward with the $300, and we will continue to support getting that letter from Trump. And if we don't get the letter from Trump, oh, thank you, Christian. There's the letter, the email that Fenton not only sent to me and to the governor, but also on phone calls, basically stating that Biden will come in and Biden can give you that waiver. And if you don't get the waiver, you can always appeal the decision. And if all that fails, which could take up to a year, we'll cross that bridge and we'll figure out the solution. And the solution could be if we have to pay, we're looking at a possible $11 to $15 million payment by government of Guam. I agreed, the governor agreed that is a risk to get a small risk of paying $11 to $15 million and getting close to $45 million out to the people who are hurting. This is money that's sitting there that can help our people just before the holidays. I thoroughly agreed with her. We got some resistance from the financial people because they're financial people. That's what they're there for. And this was a call that FEMA thought was right. The governor strongly, and I totally back her, that the risk outweighs the not getting 45 million additional dollars out to our people when they need it. And she is pushing me to get the money out. So on November 15th, that hit us with that letter and that email. So I'm moving as aggressively as I can, and we're going to try to make the first payment on the 24th, next Tuesday. And we're finding out through the auditing that a lot of people didn't put in additional docs. I can't tell whether you were hired, you went back to work, but then you were let go again. I don't know. I need these docs. And so that's the call out. And everybody is saying, well, why did you do it so quickly? You should give people more notice. I just got the letter and the go ahead on the 15th. Now, do I wait and give everybody long notice before I pay them? Or do I pay this money out as quickly as possible to all those people who are up to date, the thousands of people who are up to date and ready for the payment? I will do another batch. You have plenty of time to fix your claims, to add those extra documents, and I'll rebatch it for another round of payments. But I'm getting this money out, and I have no idea. This is a separate program that is leaching into the PUA program and feeding off of it. I've been working diligently daily with our programmers to try to make sure that this process works seamlessly and correctly. I think we're there, but you need to know that we're liable for those overpayments or for the fraud payments that we pay. Guam is liable. So I'm keeping it to a minimum, and I'm being very protective. I'm trying to do my best to pay out everybody, but to be diligent. So you know that is a balancing act. But I do want to let you know, if we seem to get a lot of fraud or overpayments, I may come back to you and ask for you to pass legislation that those people who owe monies that from these claims that are now general fund liabilities, that we can garnish taxes or use collection agencies to help pay back the general fund.
I see.
That might happen down the road. The PUA we don't have to worry about, because overpayments and fraud don't become a general fund liability. The feds, it stays with the feds. This program becomes a general fund liability. I'm doing my best. There's always going to be some overpayments. There's always going to be some people who lied on their claims in the 20 to 25,000 total claims that we're going to be paying and get away with it, because we can't audit 100%. We are trying to do as many of a high percentage so that when OIG or the FEMA comes and audits, we have a high percentage of auditing sampling rate.
Right. Well, thanks for
I know
that.
I'm getting a little bit too detailed, but
no, it's very important for us to be able to hear that, so we can also plan ahead. And I have a request for you, Mr. Director. If you could please work with my office and the members-elect for the 36th to transmit any proposed legislation that is needed to address this LWA fraud or overpayments as soon as you can, so we can enact this fix proactively, and we can, try to work together to be able to do that. But I have a couple of questions on LWA, but I wanted to give Senators Marsh and Tydegui the opportunity to ask any questions they might have. I just want to note for the record that we are going into session at 10, so we're kind of up against the clock here, but go ahead, Senator Marsh.
Duasmasi, Madam Chair, and I agree with you. It's been incredibly important to hear all of these details, and so I appreciate each and every one of them that has been shared. I think one of the most important ones for us to keep in mind is that Guam is liable as was just shared, for these fraudulent claims and for overpayment. And then this gets into the general fund, which we all know is very negatively impacted right now. And so we need to be protecting each and every dime out there and be keeping that in mind. And certainly I support the proactive approach, so I appreciate you for that. So one of the questions that I had, and I appreciate the spreadsheet you were able to provide where it outlines something like 17,775,500, something right around there, of dollars that are coming our way or have come our way through taxes from this federal assistance. And that has been one of our, just something really helpful for us as a government and a community, so that it kind of gives in two different ways. With this additional assistance, where you said that we're taking this risk, and it makes a lot of sense that, $45 million to our people, it's going to get into the economy, it's going to have multiplier effects and things like that. But there is also, I believe, taxes that can be applied to that, or is that different from the PUA, that taxes will not be applied for that? And if any of that offsets this $11 to $15 million risk, if you could address that.
This is not like the PUA. You can, and the FPUC, you can elect to have taxes withheld. This is not, you cannot, we can't, there's no vehicle for us to withhold taxes. So it'd be just, it's up to the claimant, once they get this money, to use that as part of their filing for taxes. So that will be collected later on. But there is strictly getting out $300 out to everybody. And it's kind of like, a lump sum, and that is going to be for them to file later on.
Okay, so there is potentially tax money coming our way, and I hope that there's real strong messaging to the people receiving this, that this is something they have to claim, and there are potential taxes that they have to pay on that. Is there strong messaging to really help them understand that and prepare for it?
Well, and you bring up a good point, because, at the beginning of the PUA program, I strongly advocated everybody to take taxes out. And I am afraid that there's some people that just wanted to take all the money and they're going to spend all of it. And then come next year when they have to file taxes, they've gotten a total of $23,000 plus a PUA, and they're not going to have, and they're going to owe several $1,000s in taxes, and they're not going to have it.
And this is for withholding, correct, Director?
What's that?
Withholding taxes?
What about it? I'm sorry.
This is for withholding
Yes.
taxes, correct?
So you have the option when you file for PUA to check the box, and they hold 10%. And then that is the money that that you see in that spreadsheet. And most have taken advantage of it. We calculate most have, but there are some that didn't, and they're going to spend all that money. I'm just letting you know. And then next year, when taxes are due, and they potentially owe $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 of the 23, give or take $1,000 of PUA that they received, they're going to spend it all, and they're not going to have that. That's something that we've been professing out to everybody to be aware of, and this is going to be an additional $1,800 total potential to add it on. It's not a large amount, not like my PUA, which if you qualify for all 39 weeks since March, you have the potential to collect $24,000. That's a lot of money, and that can translate to a lot of taxes. $1,800 isn't a couple $100 in taxes. So yes, that's all I can say is I can warn the public, but they all have to understand that they do their own They control their own destiny.
And it is reassuring in a sense to find out that it would be maybe $180, $200. So I'm just trying to do some quick math here.
Most of the people that get it will be in the low tax rate
for taxes.
You know, a lot of the people
Yeah.
won't be having much income this year. So of course they'll be in the lower tax, and a lot of it through their standard deductions will take it out. So they may not owe, but if you collect 24,000 in PUA, you have that's your earnings for the year, which is not small money. You're going to have to pay several $1,000s out of $24,000. And that becomes a little bit more of a burden. And so in doing a rough calculation, and my numbers maybe way off, but you know, at 180, or if I round it to $200 a person, and I'm estimating, and this is where you can really correct me, that there may be 30,000 people applying for this additional relief of $1,800. I think that adds up to about maybe $6 million in taxes. So I'm just, I think it's a little high, but you know, you probably, you know, I would say anywhere from 4 million, if you want me to ballpark it. We're looking at probably paying around 20 to 25,000 claimants. That's on the high side that will qualify for this. I got 45 million, and I hope that I can get it every single dollar out until it exhausts, and then there's no more to give out. So
and then my bigger point being, and I appreciate
10% of 45 million is 4.5 million.
Oh, there you go.
Kind of gives you
I could have done it that way. That would have been so much easier. But yeah, that 4.5 million is going to offset that potential risk of 11 million coming our way, and we hope that we have a year to work this out. And
I do want to say that the governor is aware of this potential risk and has told the financial people to set aside, to try to not be hit blindsided. So she's aware, and they're working on even if it's small risk, to figure it out. So she's being very diligent and smart about not just letting this roll the dice, that she's saying, let's cover our risk on the side. And if it goes away, then we have that covered. So I congratulate her in looking at the big picture and covering all the different scenarios. And hopefully, like I said, the waiver comes through and we never have to worry about this. And the overpayments and the fraud are kept to a minimum. And we will know as we make a couple batches and we actually have a real feel for this.
Right, and that proactivity is incredibly, incredibly important. So thank you for making us aware of that. And then if I could just ask a tiny question, hopefully it's just kind of a yes or no answer, but it was so important, I think, that the chairwoman brought up the issue about whether this money is sitting around in the bank and collecting interest and so forth. But I would imagine that if for some reason, somehow, some way, the money hit the bank and then it wasn't distributed immediately as direct deposits, that there would be a penalty for this, that we would have to answer to that, potentially getting, being penalized and getting our money held for many more allotments until we sort it out or something, so that just assuring us all that there is no way that it would be held. And if we did so for whatever reasons, by accident or by design, that we would actually be penalized for this and have to answer to USDOL immediately, I would think.
It would have to be returned.
You broke up.
Would the entire allotment have to be returned?
It would have to be returned, yes.
Yes.
Wow. And so, you can't.
That's why I want to get the money out.
Than that.
That's why I want to pay everybody as much as possible. Yeah. I don't ever want to return money that goes to the people, but they have to qualify. So it is what it is. And I just hope that there's enough money to get everybody paid before the end of the program.
Thank you,
Okay,
Senator.
and thank you. Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Tidigui, you're recognized.
Thank you. And Dave, yes, no, I don't know. Because I got to run this session. I think my colleagues are already at the Legislative Hall right now, so I gotta travel. But Dave, you meant this is the LWA. You said that yes. $15 million is going to have to come from the government of Guam somehow. Has the governor recognized where that $15 million is going to come from?
Well, potentially come from. Don't forget, because even if you read that letter, Fenton strongly thinks that, and that's why he wouldn't advise us if he didn't think that we would get this waiver or this money, not obligated. But she is aware of it, like I said, and she is working to make sure that we're not blindsided if we do get that obligation. And don't forget, if we did get that obligation, we, like I said, have to collect from the people, and that money goes back into the general fund to lower that obligation.
Can we use CARES Act money for that $15 million?
You can use CARES Act money, but don't forget CARES Act money expires at the end of December when the program ends.
And if I'm not mistaken, it expires at the end of December. However, this is the deadline for this is November 20th, correct?
The deadline for this is a prior to year-end obligation, so you can use any residual CARES Act money to satisfy this.
I'm talking about the LWA. LWA, it says that everybody who's qualified for it by Friday, November 20, in order to be included in the November 24th batch. Okay.
No,
so
they have up until the end of December, the 26th.
Okay.
To file and to get paid.
And the CARES Act, we have to use at the end of the month. We have to use all the CARES Act. So can the governor earmark or put something in there that $15 million is set aside for this particular payment in the event we are not going to pay it? But then again, you're right. Let's say that we do get the money.
Don't forget that just because it ends on December 26th, that's for new LWA claims. I can keep paying it because I'm only on September 16th right now. By the end of the 26th, I won't be up to the 26th. I will still be paying out those claimants, paying catch up after December. Monies will still be going out in January and February for LWA and for PUA, for those people all the way that filed up until the last date of the 26th of December, if you understand what I'm saying.
So then I think so. And so that means if we do not jeopardize or potentially jeopardize the general fund of $15 million, then Department of Labor is going to have to, create magic to make sure that everybody who qualifies for this $300 plus the $100 from government of Guam is paid out before the end of the year. That's going to be tough. I know it is, but nothing's impossible. Other than that, thank you for your time. Thank you, Madam. I have to rush to
Thank you very much, Senator Tidigui. I certainly appreciate your questions and your participation today. So I do have a couple of quick questions for you, Dave, before we adjourn this morning. So in terms of, I really appreciate the LWA update that you've given us. How do you feel about the level of participation versus the estimated pool of eligible residents? Do you feel like more people need to apply for LWA, or do you feel like you're getting a good amount of folks responding?
Well, the people who are eligible for LWA have already applied. Remember, the period is basically the end of August 1st to September 15th. A lot of these people have been paid already, so it's already a set amount. The only time that you haven't is if you haven't gone back and done a filing at all yet. So that's why we're moving forward with the payment, because 90% of the people who are going to get this money have already qualified, and we're using that paid list from the PUA to pay these people. So there's, like I said, that's what limits our liability because we've already paid up to the 16th. So the end of the LWA is the 5th of September. So we've already paid a lot of those people.
Understood. Maybe if I
okay.
could be a little bit more clear with the outreach that you've done for this new round of applicants, are you seeing all the PUA recipients apply for LWA, or some are not applying yet, and maybe you're waiting for PUA recipients to apply?
Let me ask it. You don't apply for LWA. The
You're
system goes back and looks at that is from August 1st to the 5th. Those weeks, if you made $100 of PUA, then you automatically qualify for LWA.
Okay, that's helpful for me.
The automatic system.
Okay, great. And you talked a little bit about the timeline for release and shared the memo with us, so I really appreciate it. If there are any other questions, we're in constant contact, so I again really appreciate the work that you and Jerry and Hannah and your team over there have done to keep us in the loop and to constantly keep the community up to speed on what it is that's going on at GDOL. So I guess with that,
I do just want to make one point. I just
sure.
also would be remiss if I didn't thank DOA. They're the ones that are getting the checks and the direct deposits out on a weekly basis as we batch tens of thousands of claims, that they are working tirelessly to cut checks, to make these deposits, reconcile. We have had a total of 1,800 mistaken wrong bank accounts entered that we've had to get reverse, reconcile, and redone in the paper check or redo. And that's a paperwork nightmare. And DOA has been working with us nonstop. So they have also done a bang up job of working with us. And now with this new check writing system going out, it is going out in days instead of weeks as it previously happened. And this is something that will benefit GovGuam after PUA.
Going forward. Yes, absolutely. And that was a very important point for us to make. I think we made it in a previous oversight hearing, but I appreciate you bringing up Director Byrne and his team over at DOA and giving them kudos also for helping us to get this money out to our people. And I think I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank all the people on this call who helped us make it happen. So our AV team, our Sergeant at Arms, Christian and Phil, and my team at my office who've been really, really helpful in just making sure that we have this constant conversation and we're getting this information out to our people. So, Dave, again, I just really want to thank you for joining us this morning, for your presentation, for sharing all this info, for being open to answer all of our questions. And I know that you're constantly getting questions from colleagues of mine and just helping us to answer the questions from our community and making sure that the people who need these unemployment benefits are able to receive them. So we, as always, we stand ready to provide this oversight, but also support GDOL in any way that we can. So like I mentioned before, if you could just work very closely with us in terms of any forward-thinking legislation that you might envision for LWA, again, we'd be happy to help you. So thank you in advance. And I guess with that, let me just double check if there's anything I'm missing. Doesn't look like it. So we'll go ahead and adjourn. We do have session at 10 a.m. this morning. So with that, I just wanted to say Suzu's Maasi Todas Hamzu, the Committee on Federal and Foreign Affairs, Telecommunications, Technology, and Labor hereby concludes this virtual oversight hearing. Written testimonies may be submitted through email at Senator Biscoe Lee at guamlegislature.org or may be submitted via Dropbox here at the Guam Congress Building 163, Chalan Santo Papa in Hagåtña until the close of business on Friday, December 4th, 2020. This virtual oversight hearing is now adjourned. The time is now 9:39 a.m. Sizu Usmaasi.
Thank you, Senator.